We've spoken to the police and looked at the possibility of stronger and more secure doors with bike lockers, but the cost is prohibitive, and we removed the doors because they looked untidy. After the damage was caused, we advised users of the lockers that we could not guarantee the security of these facilities. If anyone wishes to use a locker, provided they accept that they place their property within their own risk, then they can again be used.
Moving on to question 6, the County Clerk Andrew Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your meeting today will discuss a document called the Vision for Somerset, with a view to approving a plan from 2016 to 20. The document contains several major ideas: a new town, a university. When councillors were elected in 2013, I don't recall seeing any of these ideas and concepts being put forward in the electoral leaflets on which they sought to be elected. So the council today will seek to approve major items, be they good, be they bad, of spend with no obvious democratic mandate for them. Yet in just a year's time, in 2017, the whole council will go forward for election. This would give you the chance to get a mandate for these ideas. Now, you may tell me that the planning horizon, this sort of fixed communist-style 4-year plan that we all seem to have, is immovable and out of sync with the election dates. Well, if it is, then surely you have an obligation to change that cycle so that it's brought into line. Then at least you have a mandate for what you want to do before you spend large sums of taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thomas, will I ask you to answer this question?
Thank you very much, Chairman. And let me thank Mr. Lee for his question and his attendance at full council today. Mr. Lee raises a number of issues around the electoral terms of office of this local authority. I have to point out that the election cycle is not in the gift of this local authority. It is set by national government. There is no flexibility. I would also point out, of course, that the government's own term of office is now fixed in law as a 5-year term. Therefore, neither this administration or the current government could possibly be called a communist-style regime. So I have to admit my eyebrows were slightly raised at that suggestion. If I could, Chairman, address the central point within the questions, namely the ambitions within the county plan. Across this council and across all parties, I believe there is general support for the drivers that underpin the objectives within the vision. We all agree, I hope, that Somerset needs a better qualified workforce. We need more jobs, we need more homes, we need better infrastructure. We all want to reduce social, economic and health inequalities. It's fair to say across the political divide we may have different approaches or different solutions, but I hope all parties would agree to the broad principles. We have a number of major issues to confront in Somerset, such as the way young people leave our county for universities elsewhere, and then unfortunately they don't come back, which means that we lose out on future nurses, social workers and engineers. And may I just divert from my script for a moment to actually say the latest copy of the Landcourt Leveller, of course, highlights the importance of education on its front cover and on page 3 and on page 5, and that's wonderful to promote our university centre in Somerset and also the sixth forms in Somerset. Well, we need to go further, and I'm glad that you're doing your bit to promote further education in Somerset. So we need to make this county more attractive for young people coming in, young people to stay, for businesses to set up here. The status quo, in my view, contributes to a cycle of decline. Later on today, I hope that this council will decide that it wants, indeed it must, take action to break this cycle. My side of the aisle, my party, were elected to lead the county, and lead we will. And we will lead for every day of our 4-year term. We have produced a vision that starts the conversations that must be held with government, with businesses, with partners and communities. It's a big job, it's a big step forward, but only a first step forward. There is only some start-up funding going to be attached to these projects for now. It is absolutely clear that the Council can only deliver on these proposals with the support, with the resources and willingness of local and national partners. By the time the next election comes around, I'm sure these conversations will be well advanced and we'll be able to report on the progress and the electorate can make up their own mind. I have received only one message questioning the vision, but dozens in support of the vision. This Council must continue to provide its core services, but it is also perfectly placed to raise the level of debate in Somerset and to suggest ambitious new projects which will benefit the entire county. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and you will supply a written reply to that effect, I'm sure.
Moving on to our next question, which is devolution number 7 from Nigel again.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a short one. The Communities and Local Government Select Committee says Whitehall and local authorities must go further with devolution deals and engage with the public in devolution proposals. Does this Council agree with the Select Committee that there should be public consultation engagement at all stages of the devolution process, and that is not just about transferring power from national to local politicians, but also about local communities? Thank you, Chair.
John, are you going to reply to this as well?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Nigel, for your question. If I could respond with a single word, the answer is yes, but I will go into a bit more detail for you. Oh, okay. No, the government has placed a hugely tight timescale on councils to produce initial expressions of interest in local authorities that want to seek devolved powers. Glad to say that we met those timescales. There was then a complex negotiation, really, of our 23 partners to create a deal which all the partners could sign up to. And of course, the agreed version is on today's agenda. I do, however, agree that it is important that we are able to engage and consult the public should the government agree to a devolution deal. The process will be we will submit our prospectus once all the local authorities have signed off, and then we will start the conversations with government, and government will come back to us saying, well, this is what we want to offer. We started our engagement already with the public, and in our listening, learning, changing consultations this year, we did raise the general question about would you like to see more devolved powers, and 69% of respondents said yes, we would like to see more devolved powers to local authorities. I think it's important we carry on that conversation, and in our next round of listening, learning, changing roadshows, I think we need to consult on where we've got to so far, and then hopefully by that time we will have the government deal which we can present to residents as well. I hope all councillors will attend the roadshows, give their view there, but the deal will come back to this authority as well for final sign-off. And obviously we'll do our best to keep residents and council involved on the way.
Thank you very much. Moving to question 8, budgets and council taxes. Alan Devlin.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. I'm here, as usual, as a liaison officer of the local Taunton Dean Green Party, a party which has relentlessly opposed austerity measures ever since they began. In fact, a step further, if you looked at the banners when you came in, it said reversing some of the cuts, not just a question of stopping cuts. But most of the sentiments and feelings of myself and my party are included in the question, if you read the question carefully. Basically, it's an old adage of mine to say that there's a relentless, hard, right-wing, party political, if you like, dismantling of local government services by withdrawal of the revenue support grant, and it's going to continue. And unfortunately, I label you all as lambs to the slaughter because there has been very, very little protest, although I will say John Osborne has actually put record down to say that we're having to face new challenges because of the austerity measures. So we're beginning to realise that Tory government, in fact, is the perpetrators of most of the challenges and difficulties that local councils up and down the land are facing. But the other point, just a quick point, We are not all in this together, as Campbell Maine said at the beginning. It is a relentless, partly political, hard, right-wing onslaught against public spending, and they deem local government services to be a soft touch, unfortunately. Not too many people here, not too many votes at stake. But lastly, if I can just make a last point about devolution, as you know, the Green Party normally would be clapping. But unfortunately, the devolution plans, coming once again from diktat from on high, from George Osborne, and all the councillors like well-trained lapdogs obeying what they're told to do. Unfortunately, it is a sham, because at the guts of it, it's still to do with saving money rather than genuine devolution. And as Nigel Bean said, there has been no proper public democratic consultation. But anyway, if you read my question carefully, most of the points are made in the question. Thank you very much, Chair.
John Osborne, just to answer.
Thank you, Chairman, and let me thank Mr Debenham for his question, which I'm sure he'll agree. It's in a similar vein to previous questions you've raised to this Council, Cabinet and Scrutiny. I will address the main themes of your comments, but also some of the specific allegations raised. First, you asked why this Council or councillors have not spoken out against government funding cuts. I have to point out that, sorry, I think you need to get your facts a little bit straight. As leader of this Council, I have repeatedly spoken out against the reduction in funding, which have been imposed on us. I've done so in this chamber. I did so in a scrutiny meeting when you attended as well, sir. I've done so in your Somerset publications, which has gone out to every householder in Somerset. The County Gazette on the 2nd of December. James Craig is sat to your left-hand side. I'm pretty sure he will recall a few interviews when I've said exactly the same as well. And I'm not alone. I'm sure that there are members of the Cabinet, Council on both sides of the aisle who have regularly spoken out against the reduction in our funding and pointed out that if you reduce that funding, then you increase the risk on our services. I refer Mr Debenham to the recently published county plan, which of course also reflects the cuts and the potential future cuts in our funding, but also point out the fact that we are looking at ways in which we can become more sustainable in the future. So, Mr Debenham, I do reject some of your comments, I'm sorry to say. You then go on to criticise the administration on the one hand for not putting up council tax, and then on the other hand for putting up council tax. We can't have it both ways. We'll obviously come on to that in the MTFP debate later on today. Let us say once again, to ensure there is no misunderstanding, the government has faced up to huge pressures of its own. I'm not going to go into who caused them, but they have had an issue to sort out, and the coalition government sorted out, and now the Conservative government is sorting it out. And obviously they have passported some of those savings onto us. I do not agree or support with the cuts to local government funding, but that is where we find ourselves in the last few years. I always have to point out that I do meet with MPs, I do meet with ministers, Secretary of State, and put our case very, very clearly in relation to fair financial funding. The latest stat I'll give you, I'm going to talk to it later, but Somerset is, our latest stats, underfunded by £27 million a year. If we had an extra £27 million, I'm pretty sure the budget would be a lot easier later on today. So in short, so we do campaign on the issues of financial management, and we do target and certainly make sure we know where we can make an impact and campaign on those issues. We continue to campaign. We received a little bit of extra funding from government just 10 days or so ago, which we'll come on to in further detail. But everyone in this chamber will continue to fight for funding for Somerset. I don't think anyone in this chamber is a lamb to the slaughter. I think we don't agree on everything, but I think we can agree that Somerset needs to be fairly funded.
Thank you. There's hope for you as yet.
Thank you. And our final question today, number 9, from Nigel Bean, Medium-Term Financial Plan.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, the Department of Community and Local Government last week stated it's providing additional quote-unquote grant money to some local authorities in the form of Rural Services Grant and a Transition Grant. This amounts to approximately 2.9 million for Somerset County Council for 2016-17. Will this amount be used to reduce the overall cut of 11.9 billion identified in Paper B Appendix C5? That, although I have just seen the green extra paper this morning, and just wondered could we clarify decrease in use of reserves of 2.2 million? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, you just answered as well.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I just clarify? I thought you said 11.9 billion. I don't think it's quite that much, but 11.9 million, sir. Excellent. Thank you for the question. I will, of course, be making a statement on the MTFP and the additional money which we have received from central government in item 7. So I don't really want to say too much now. In short, I welcome the government's last-minute decision to provide some extra revenue support funding. It is a small adjustment. We welcome it. We've considered it. And obviously the plans are in the papers for councillors, it's in the green papers, councillors have got a chance to read it, and I'll make a formal announcement on item 7.
Thank you very much for all your questions.